cheating scientist.
Right, we'll make us. Can you all hear me fine?
Hello, John.
Can everybody hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Good stuff. We'll be all making a start. Do you know, Liz, if there's many more to come on? Anyway, we'll make a start. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the initial, very first virtual People's Past, People's Future Burns Night extravaganza. For your pleasure and delight and to titivate your cultural senses, we have some wonderful entertainers on our programme this evening. Matt will start the ball rolling with his version of the address to the haggis. I will then blow the pants off of everybody with a short immortal memory of Robert Burns. We'll then have Mr. George Sutherland, who in his own inimitable style will deliver the toast to the lassies. George hails from the Oatlands originally, and I'm quite positive he'll have plenty to say about our lovely ladies. To reply on behalf of the fairer sex, or as some folk would say, our better halves, we have our very own PPPF chairperson, who I'm positive will respond in her own chirpy, quirky, cheeky style, the one and only wee Lizzie McWilliamson.
Hi.
Also on the programme, we have a castle milker like myself, and I give her a Sunday name, Elizabeth. Elizabeth Bell will recite Burns' magnificent anthem to mankind, a man's a man for all that. And making a guest appearance, we also have all the way from the Gorbals, an aficionado and expert tour guide on all things Southern Necropolis. And if you ever want to spend a pleasant couple of hours and learn plenty about the history of the Gorbals and the Southern Necropolis, Colin and his wife Elsie are at the cemetery every Sunday at 12:30, lockdown permitting. Ladies and gentlemen, we have our very own Grim Reaper, Colin Mackey. Following on for that, we'll hopefully to give us our party piece, Brenda Faulkner from Burnside. Brenda is originally from sunny Springburn, and although having married a Ruglonian and lived in the borough for many, many years, she's still trying to lose her Springburn accent. And I would need to mention Nellie. I was hoping that Nellie would be doing something, but as we all know, Nellie is a very funny woman when she tells her stories, when she'd be doing her stories about her nursing and things like that, and it's just a pity she's not keeping too well, and she can't be here with us. But anyway, we'll send all our best to Nellie. And last but not least, later on, we'll open the floor to anybody who wishes to give us their own contribution to the evening's entertainment. And the flair is yours. So just before we start the ball rolling with Matt giving the address to the haggis, just you get ready, Matt. And for anyone who's having some haggis, neeps and tatties, I'll deliver a wee quick grace. Some he meet and can't eat, and some would eat that want it. But we he meet and we can eat, and say the Lord be thank it. So I'll chanter the haggis in, Matt. We're not getting the bagpipes up tonight.
done.
That sound all right? I'm never
Aye,
playing the
good.
sound on these things.
Very good.
Anyway, we'll begin
Brilliant.
evening with
Right.
Matt giving the address to the haggis. On you go, Matt.
Oh, he's not there.
Oh. He's fell off his chair.
Come
Right,
on,
Matt.
Your timing will need to be better than this, Matt.
Matt's not there.
Oh, it's a shame. Can we just say hello? Can we just say
Oh,
hello,
he's there.
everybody? Well, he's here. Hi, everybody.
Matt, you're a half an hour late. You got to address the haggis.
You're looking good, Matt.
You can't hear us, evidently.
Is he muted?
Matt, can you hear us? I'll need to unmute.
Hello.
Right, Matt, you've missed the piping
Hello.
into the haggis. You'll need to address the haggis.
I didn't come here a wee minute.
We can hear you now.
He's broke it.
We
Can hear you,
now,
Matt.
Matt. I just piped the haggis in there. Did you miss it?
They came up there, John. Was unmuting me there. But for somehow I'm not getting any sound.
Oh.
You have to get a gallery view.
That's a shame. The gallery view is good when you can see everybody.
This
I can't get it.
Amplifier. We can hear you, Matt.
Up
Press
next,
gallery view.
up next.
Hello
to
there.
Well, Matt. Yay. Yay. You're looking good, Matt.
Thank you. Got it.
You've just missed us piping the haggis in. So, will you carry on now and address the haggis for us?
I will do.
Right, carry on.
Right, wait a minute.
Wait a minute, I've lost the picture.
Geraldine, if you press the picture, press on your picture, and
I can see you all now. Thank you.
right, good. I can hear you. I can see you.
Welcome,
Good.
Annie McMillan.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Brenda and
Hi.
George and Nina too. And these are the people that have it. Liz is here. Kate,
How do you
Heidi,
get
you
it?
don't.
Hi, Rena, George, Elizabeth, Brenda. Yes, Christine.
Hi, Christine. Hi, Christine. Hi.
Hi, everybody.
Right, everybody, let's carry on and let Matt address his haggis.
Right,
Before it gets
okay.
cold.
Right, I'm about to address this haggis.
Right.
You see the haggis?
No.
Don't worry about it.
Yes.
Yes.
See ya.
Caught it last night, actually up in the Deckham Hills. I was up there with Hamish and we caught this. It's a female haggis, so it should be a good one. So this is addressed to the haggis. Some English people call it a sonnet to a haggis or an ode to a haggis, but these Sassenachs don't know anything. So this is an address to a haggis by Robert Burns. I think it was 1794. He wrote it 93, but through in Edinburgh. So fair for your honest sonsy face, great chieftain of the pudding race. Aboon them all ye tak your place, pench trite and ferns. Will ye wordy a grace as long as my arm? The groaning trencher there ye fill, your hurdies like a distant hill. Your pinwood wad to mend a mill in time of need. While through your pores the dew distill like amber bead. Oh, lovely. His knife, say rustic. Oh, wait a minute, that's an English knife. This is a Scottish knife.
Hey.
His knife, say rustic labour dight, and cut where eddies slight, trenching your crushing entrails bright like ony ditch. And then, oh, what a glorious sight. Warm, reeking, rich. Then horn for horn, they starve and stay. They'll take the hindmost, on they drive, till all their well-wheel swallowed kites belie and beat like drums. Then all Goldman mace like to rive, be thank it hums. Is there oor his French ragout, or olio that was sour stew, or fricassee would make him spew with perfect scunner, looks down with sneering view when sick of dinner. You see that?
Uh-huh.
Oh, Boris.
Oh, yeah.
Well, poor devil, see him out his trash, as feckless as a withered rash, his spindle shank a good white lash, his knee a knit, through bloody floor and field to dash. Oh, how unfit. But mark, the rustic haggis fed, the trembling earth resounds her tread, clapping her wally knee a blade, she'll make it whistle, and legs and arms, and hands and will sned like taps of thistles. Ye powers that make mankind your care, and dish them out with bill of fare. All Scotland wants nae stinking ware that jumps in luggies. But if you wish her a grateful prayer, gear a haggis. To the haggis. A toast to the haggis. Slangivar.
Oh, well done, Matt. Well done, Matt.
Done, Matt. That was really good.
Right.
That was wonderful.
Thanks very
Excellent, Matt. Excellent.
Kathleen haven't got their cameras on.
Now that everybody's had their now silence, please. Now that everybody's had their haggis, neeps, and tatties, their cockily soup, and their trifle. Carry on now and do the main speech of the evening, the immortal memory to Robert Burns. They say you should never begin a immortal memory speech by saying Robert Burns was born on the 25th of January, 1759. So, Robert Burns was born on the 25th of January, 1759. They also say that for an immortal memory, you should pick one aspect of Burns's life and speak on that particular topic. This evening, I'm throwing that tradition to the winds too. You know, it's fine to do the one aspect thing when you're speaking to an audience, a Burnsians, or people that are quite well versed on the subject. But it's an entirely different thing when you're speaking to people that maybe not too well up on the life of Robert Burns. And I think it's quite nice just to go through his life in a kind of chronological order. Burns, it's good to get a wee peek into his life. Not just his personal life, but the things that were happening round about at the time. Burns lived through very, very significant and turbulent times. In his personal life, he was never on the level in his personal life. He was always up there or down here. And the week that Burns was born, in January 1759, there was a storm raging through Ayrshire. There was howling gales, snow, 6-foot snowdrifts. The winds were so fierce that the gable end of the cottage at Alloway that had been built by his father, William Burness, collapsed. The door lintel gave way and it collapsed. And William Burness had to carry his wife and his newborn son off to a neighbour's house to bide and shelter while he repaired that end wall, that as we call it, the gable end. And as I say, Burns lived through very turbulent and significant times. And I often think that stormy start to life really set the tone for the rest of his days. Our monarch's hindmost year but ane was 25 days begun. 'Twas then a blast of January wind blew Hansel in on Robin. Probably written in flippant celebration for his 28th birthday and entered in his commonplace book about the 9th of April, 1787. So as I say, I'll work my way through his life for 10 minutes, just mentioning some of the events that happened during his lifetime and things that happened in his personal life. So we'll go back to 1759. And as well as Burns being born in Alloway in Ayrshire, another momentous event was taking place over in Ireland. A man called Arthur Guinness was opening a brewery. So, cheers, Arthur.
Yes.
Moving on to 1760, as the same in 1765, as well as Arthur opening his brewery, James Watt, on a stroll through Glasgow Green, comes up with the inspiration that provides the breakthrough in his development of the steam engine. The Industrial Revolution is off and running. And in 1766, as the Burns family moved to Mount Oliphant Farm, the same year slaves are being imported into Georgia for the first time from Senegal, and James Francis Edward Stewart, the Old Pretender, passes on. A wee mention about Burns' schooling. You know, a lot of people think, are under the impression that he didn't have a lot of schooling.
No.
But for his time, Burns had an absolutely magnificent schooling.
Mhm.
Him and his brother Gilbert, a lot of people talk about a fellow called John Murdoch being Burns' first teacher, but that's not strictly true. When Burns was about 6, him and his brother Gilbert went to the school in Alloway. There was a wee school there ran by a fellow called William Campbell. And Burns and his brother Gilbert got sent there along with other few kids that lived in Alloway. There was only 6 or 7 families in Alloway at that time. And but after about 2 weeks at Campbell's school, Campbell up sticks. He'd got himself a new job. In his words, he'd found a new position, a better position, working in the poorhouse in Ayr. So if he'd found himself a better position working in the poorhouse in Ayr, it maybe tells you a thing or two about how much teachers were actually getting paid at the time. But that was the kids in Alloway left without a teacher. And William Burness, Burns' father, was quite adamant and quite determined that his kids, especially his sons, would have an education. And this young graduate, John Murdoch, had been recommended to him. And he went into Ayr to interview him. Now just think of this, a poor, lowly tenant farmer goes into Ayr to interview a university graduate. Speaks to Murdoch. Murdoch agrees to come to Alloway, and the deal was he would teach the kids in Alloway. He would get bed and board in turn with the families there that lived in Alloway, and he'd get about £6 a week for his wages. And one of the significant things that sticks out in my mind is that in later life, when Murdoch was interviewed about his time with the Burns family, he stated that between the 2 brothers, Gilbert and Robert, Gilbert seemed the sharpest and the cleverest. And if one of them was going to make something of himself, it would be Gilbert. And the other thing he said was that Burns was tone deaf. He couldn't hold a tune when he tried to teach them psalms and hymns. How wrong can one man be? And think all the beautiful songs that Burns wrote, you know.
Mhm.
And anyway, where was I? 1765, 66. The Burns family moved to Mount Oliphant Farm. Slaves are being imported. Up to 1774, in age 15, Burns writes his first song, Handsome Nell, for a lassie called Helen Blair, who had been working with during the harvest. Robert Ferguson, a Scottish poet, who would eventually have a big influence in the life of Burns, dies. In 1775, Burns, his father, sends him to Kirkoswald, to the school of Hugh Roger, a noted mathematician and teacher of the day. Burns was there to learn trigonometry, geometry and stuff, and brush up on any maths he already knew. Unknown to him at the time, he was learning stuff that would stand him in good stead. Joined the excise service at the Gauger. But while he's there at Kirkoswald at Hugh Rogers School, he's 15-year-old at this time, just coming on to 16. He's not only learning his trigonometry and his geometry, he's starting to learn about the fairer sex And he gets his eye on a young lassie that lives across the road for the school, the name of Margaret Thompson. Peggy, his young Fiat, as he calls her. And while he's there, he writes a song called Wasteland Wind. Now, Wasteland Winds, a song composed in August to get its alternative title. And many years have probably heard me singing it. It's an absolutely wonderful song. And to this day, I can't believe, I'm gobsmacked at how a 15 or 16-year-old laddie could write this song. And wee Peggy gets a mention in the song. But Peggy dear, the evening's clear. Thick flies the skimming swallow. The sky is blue, the fields in view, all fading green and yellow. The same year, 1775, the American Congress appoints George Washington Commander-in-Chief. A year later, in 1776, on the 4th of July, the Declaration of Independence is signed. A year later, in 1777, the Burns family moved to the 130-acre Lochleaf farm, Tarbolton, for £130 per annum. Robert Burns, against the wishes of his father, goes to dancing classes to brush up his manners, to quote him. This caused a real stoosh in the Burns family. Believe me, Mr. Burns thought that dancing was the work of the devil, and it was the last place he wanted any of his family to be. And the Stars and Stripes is adopted as the flag of the United States of America. In 1780, the Tarbolton Bachelors Club, where I've performed many a time, performed many gigs, a very, very historical Burns place. The Bachelors Club, a debating society, is formed by Burns and his brother Gilbert and 4 of their good friends. And the first derbies ran in the original Epsom Downs. Moving on to 1781, again in the 4th of July, Robert Burns is inducted into St David's Masonic Lodge number 174 in Tarbolton, or Tarboughton as the locals call it. He goes to Irvine to learn the trade of flax dressing. In 1783, Burns is awarded £3, a £3 premium for linseed growing. So his time in Irvine wasn't wasted. In 1784, Burns' father William dies after a long and wearisome legal battle with his factor, a fellow called David McClure, which was eventually resolved at the Court of Session. William Burness won the battle, but it took its toll, and his health suffered. And in anticipation of this tragic event, Robert and Gilberts rented the farm of Moss Gill from Gavin Hamilton, a lawyer friend of Burns. George III is the king, William Pitt the Younger is Prime Minister, and Burns is elected Deputy Master of St James's Lodge, Colwynning, Tarbolton. In 1785, Burns meets his future wife, Jean Armour, at a dance, and that aspect alone, I could probably talk the hind legs off a donkey. I could talk the ears off you with that particular occurrence. His daughter Elizabeth, born by Betty Peyton, Dearbot Bess, is born. Into 1786, a momentous year for Burns. His first book, Poems Chiefly in the Scottish Dialect, is published. You can laugh at this one. Davy Crockett's born. Caroline Herschel discovers a comet, the first comet to be discovered by a woman. In 1787, Burns thought 1786 has been a momentous year with the publication of the Kilmarnock edition. 1787 was just as, if not more, significant. That year he heads off to Edinburgh, seeking subscriptions for publication of his second book, the Edinburgh edition. And also that year, on the 4th December, Burns was introduced to Agnes McElhose, the recipient of his wonderful song, A Fond Kiss. In May that year, he tours the borders with his friend Robert Ainsley. In September, he tours the Highlands with Willie Nicol. In October, he visits Stirlingshire and Perthshire with James Adair. This at a time when most folk would spend their entire life without hardly leaving the local area or the village or to the nearest small town. And what you've got to realise that Burns wasn't on holiday. He was doing what they'd call these days networking. He was collecting subscriptions for people who had committed to buying his book. He was building his fan base, if you like. He was making himself known. And that year, he also begins a collaboration with a man called James Johnson and a volume of books called The Scots Musical Museum, and another volume of books with a man called George Thompson called Select Scottish Airs. Significant events during that year, in 1787, a fleet of 11 ships were leaving Portsmouth with 700 convicts aboard, bound for Australia to establish a penal colony in Botany Bay. Russia went to war with Turkey, and the original Lord's Cricket Ground was held, which held the first Test match. In February 1789, Burns is in Edinburgh again to settle an account with Jenny Clow, another young woman who has taken a writ out against him. She's had a baby and she's claiming Burns is the father. Burns starts work as a gauger in the excise service, and in May that year, the French Revolution kicks off. And Burns had great sympathy with the peasants in France. In fact, there is a story, true or not, where he's tried to send a couple of small cannons over to assist the French Revolution. Carronades, they were called. I've heard different stories and read different things. Some say it's just a complete and utter fabrication. Some people say that carronades were stopped at Dover before they could get out of the Channel. But he wrote a wonderful poem about the French Revolution called The Tree of Liberty. Heard you the Tree of France? Aye, Watna, what's the name of it? Around it all the patriots dance, while Europe kens the fame of it. It stands where aince the Bastille stood, a prison built by kingsmen, when superstition's hellish brood kept France in leading strings, man. Robert Burns died on the 21st of July, 1796, and is buried in St Michael's Kirkyard in Dumfries. Ladies and gentlemen, please charge your glasses and join me in a toast to the immortal memory of Robert Burns.
To the immortal memory of Robbie Burns.
Thank you, everyone.
Well done. That was wonderful.
I hope that wasn't too long.
That wasn't
No,
very
that was
interesting.
wonderful.
Very good.
That was wonderful.
Frank, can I
Really
just show you? Can I just show you who's joined me? Mr. McTavish McWilliamson, Frank.
Elizabeth, are you ready to do a man's a man for all that?
He's doing. Let's force him into this.
Right.
She likes to put.
Elizabeth, are you ready to do a man's a man?
I don't think
Yes,
you can
I am.
Right, everybody, a wee bit silence for Elizabeth, who's going to recite Robert Burns' anthem to mankind. A man's a man for all that.
Is there for honest poverty that hangs his head and all that? The coward slave, we pass him by, we dare be poor for all that. For all that and all that, our toils obscure and all that. The rank is but the guinea's stamp, the man's the gowd for all that. What though in hamely fair we dine, we're hodden grey and all that? Gie fools their silks and knaves their wine. A man's a man for all that. For all that and all that, their tinsel show and all that. The honest man, though e'er sae poor, is king of men for all that. Ye see Dunburkie Cadalort that struts and stares and all that, though hunters worship at his word, he's but a coof for all that. For all that and all that, his ribbon star and all that, the man o' independent mind, he looks and laughs at all that. A prince can mak a belted knight, marquis, duke and all that, but honest man's aboon his might, good faith, he fauna for that. For all that and all that, their dignities and all that, the pith of sense and pride of worth are higher rank than all that. Then let us pray that come it may, as come it will for all that sense and worth o'er the earth shall bear the cree to all that. For all that and all that, it's coming yet for all that. That man to man the world o'er shall brothers be for all that. That's me.
Absolutely wonderful, Elizabeth. Superb.
Well
Wonderful.
done. Well done, Liz.
Thank
That's
you.
good.
Colin there's Colin ready to go.
You hear me all right, folks?
Colin's always ready.
Yeah, but we can't see
Ready? Aye, ready.
Elizabeth, that was an absolutely wonderful rendition of A Man's a Man for All That.
Oh,
Absolutely
thank you.
superb.
Brilliant.
Oh, thank you very much.
I'd now like to introduce Colin Mackey, a good friend of mine, and as I described him earlier on, the Grim Reaper.
Happy Reaper.
And I think you're going to do the Gorbals Vampire, is that right, Colin?
Yes, indeed, John. I am indeed. Yes.
Carry on.
It's just basically a testament again to Burns and his tradition of kind of sharing social history through words and poems and verse at the time as well. And it's quite poignant for getting history across now. We did it with schools and stuff to get the history into kids and stuff so they can learn. And we did it through a wee poem that I kind of came up with in relation to 1954 and the Gorbals, 90,000 population. And the story was 150 children went to the Southern Necropolis in the search for a vampire. The Southern Necropolis being the final resting place of one of Robert Burns's his nephew, John Begg, is buried, and his great nephew's in there as well. So there's got family links to Burns as well. So this is a wee rendition of the Gorbals Vampire. So if you use your mind and your memory and try and imagine yourself back in the Gorbals in the 1950s, 90,000 population, Dixon's blazes burning in the background of the Gorbals Southern Necropolis. And here is a story to take you back to then. Gather round, it's time to hear a legend story full of fear. Glasgow Gorbals, lots of wains, some with sticks and some with stains. Ready, able, brave and strong, all together run along to try and see and catch this guy. Perhaps he'll run or maybe fly. The story started from one mouth, then like wildfire went all south. A man so tall with teeth like steel, do we believe could he be real? No time to waste, we must act fast. These poor took wains must be the last. It's said they came 150 strong. On Gorbal streets they ran along. Running faster, gather speed, footsteps. Running faster, gather speed, footsteps. The gatehouse arch the mob did meet. That phantom creature must they defeat. Homemade weapons to defend, but all too soon comes to an end. The next day papers headlines read, Vampire with iron teeth is dead. And that's your Gorbals Vampire. There you go.
Well done, Colin. Well done. A famous story in the Gorbals.
Yay.
I remember my mother telling me the story of the Spring Hill Jock down at the graveyard there.
Aye, was that? I know, aye.
Well done, Colin.
Well done. Well
Thank
done.
Use a wee bit
Excellent.
of hush now.
That was good. That was good.
Our next speaker is going to be George giving the address to the lassies. So if you want to prepare yourself, George, we can have a wee song. If anybody wants to give us a song or something, that's fine. If nobody wants to volunteer, I'll do one. If I've got a volunteer there, that's fine.
If I disappear, I'm only at the toilet, right, John? It's not that I don't want to listen to you.
Nobody up for a song?
No, you go.
You want a wee song for George?
You carry on, John.
Give us a song. Give us a song.
Sighs and groans I'll wage thee. Who shall say that fortune grieves him While the starrows flow, she leaves him. Meany cheery twinkles, dark despair around green eyes meet. I'll ne'er blame my partial fancy. Thank you, Jesus, my Nancy. But to see her is to love her. Love but her and love forever. Had we never loved so kindly, had we never loved so blindly, never met or never parted, we had never broken hearted. A fond kiss and then we sever. A farewell and then forever. Deep in heart-wrung tears I'll pledge thee. Warring sighs and groans I'll wage thee.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you.
You all right? Are you all right for doing your? Are you all right for doing your wee party piece again as a song?
Going to go see friendship. It's no Robert Burns. But
No, anything at all.
I think friendship's very important just now. We all need it. So it's just a wee thing I thought I would say. And it's called Ingredients for Friendship. Preheat the oven of love with plenty of secrets and hugs. Mix in giggles and laughs that make your sides split when you laugh. Bake with love and care and all the things you both should share. Decorate with frosting of trust, that really is a must. Enjoy the cake, do not eat it too fast. Just like your friendships, make it last.
Very good.
Well done, well done.
Just a wee post.
Well done, Brenda. That was nice.
That was lovely. Nice.
Well, I can't do much off the cuff. I've always got to write mine down. So, here's mine. My role tonight is to defend the lassies. The first reply to the lassies was in 1876. Scotland was a very different place, and it really was a man's world. So my reply is entitled "The Woman." In days of old, when men were bold and women held their tongues, mopping up and keeping house and tending to the youngs. Forget your honest sonsy face. In Burns' time, you had to know your place. The vote was for the menfolk and the learning too. We couldn't spell to pen the poems. Och, I'll away and milk the coo. But oh, the times have changed. Rabbi, your charm wouldn't work the day. We're educated, smart and able. And nowadays, we sit at the table. With choices in love, on gender, no rules. Us women are no longer treated like fools. Waste away your patter and flowery prose, and poems and tunes and that famous rose. We're in government, the arts and everyday life. You'd be lucky the day to even have a wife.
Oh,
We're straightened with crowns, nae mair bowing down. Now to end with some humour in these COVID times, Rabbie's in the kitchen and I'm having a wine. What equals a team to having to hold, as long as he minds to do what he's told.
Oh, fantastic, man.
Yes, superb.
Fantastic.
That's
Thank
brilliant.
you.
Oh, wonderful.
Great stuff.
I might have been too long with me. I think it was too short.
Oh, no, it's wonderful.
I
It was
agree.
wonderful.
Thank you. No more bounding, woman. No more bounding. No
You
days
stick
are
up for
gone.
a woman. Aye, us poor men.
Thank you.
I had Nelly penciled in for a wee turn here, but she's no here. Does anybody else want to do anything?
What about Mr. Anderson?
Aye, on you go.
John?
Oh, hello, Mr. Anderson. A wee poem for Rabbie Burns that I was told in my youth. My name's John Anderson, so it's quite appropriate.
Aye.
John Anderson, my Jo John, when we were first acquaint, your locks were like the raven, your bonny brow was brent. But now your brow is belled, John, your locks are like the snow, and blessings on your frosty pow. John Anderson, my Jo. John Anderson, my Jo John, we climb the hill together, and mony a canty day, John, we had we want another. Now mon totter doon, John, and in hand we'll go, and sleep together at the foot. John Anderson, my Jo.
Yes.
Oh, well done. Excellent.
Superb. Brilliant.
Excellent.
Brilliant.
Excellent.
That was good. Well done, John. Well done.
I was going to sing something, but
Can Mina do a piece?
Yes,
John's
yes.
good at singing, by the way. John Hutchison. John Anderson's good at singing. Remember
Aye,
that?
we'll get a song to you later on. Does somebody see Rena wanted to do something there?
Yeah.
Right, carry on, Rena.
Well, what I want to say is I wasn't really a great fan of Burns, although I get taught about him at school. But I've read this wee thing about him and it's changed my attitude towards him, about his humanity to other people. The story behind this song is a sad one. It's a lament for the fate of Peggy Kennedy at the hands of her false lover, Captain Andrew McDowell of Logan. The daughter of Robert Kennedy of Dalriach and a niece of the poet's friend Gavin Hamilton, Peggy first met Burns in Mauchline in 1785. Just 17 years of age and already a beauty, she inspired Burns to write the song Young Peggy as a tribute to her. At that point of her life, she was already involved with McDowell, and sometime later, after a secret ceremony arranged by him, she believed they were married. In 1794, she gave birth to their daughter, at the same time as McDowell inherited his father's estate. He suddenly had the marriage declared unlawful and proceeded to marry the daughter of a wealthy Dumfriesshire laird. An ambitious man, McDowell was already the MP for Wigton by the age of 25. And now a prosperous alliance with another wealthy family in the district was no more than expedite. In a court battle in 1795, Peggy tried to leave their marriage. No, sorry. In 1795, tried to have their marriage legalized so legitimize their daughter. But she died before the court could come to a decision. 3 years later, the Constitutional Court of the Church formally recognized the marriage, but we can only imagine how McDowell managed to have this overruled in the Court of Session. Their daughter, however, was awarded the sum of £3,000, a large amount in those days, in solitarium for her mother's ordeal. Burns must have had a sixth sense about Peggy Kennedy. In his original letter to her, alongside the song Young Peggy, he had wished her good fortune and hoped that the sneers and villainy never beset upon her in the road of life. His song is an everlasting reminder of her suffering and McDowell's treachery. Now, I don't know if I can sing the song because I've got quite a sore throat. So if it'd be all right with you, I would just read it to you. You'll all know it anyway. It's ye banks and braes o' bonny Doon. How can ye bloom sae fresh and fair? How can ye chant, ye little birds, and I sae weary, full of care? Thou break my heart, thou warbling bird, that wanting through the flowering thorn, thou minds me o departed joys, departed never to return. After I wandered by bonny Doon, to see the rose and woodbine twine, and ilka birds sang o its love, and fondly so did I o mine. With lissom heart I put a rose, fu sweet upon its thorny tree, and my false lover stole my rose, but he left the thorn with me.
Oh, lovely.
Very good, Rena. That's
I
brilliant.
Very
learned-
good. That was lovely.
I learned that
Done, that was
I
good.
don't know if I could sing it.
Well done, Rena.
What have I got next on the agenda for anybody else wanted to end just now? Or do you want me to throw in a wee song or something?
A wee
Could
song.
I do another wee poem?
Yes,
Right, it's not a Burns poem.
that's all right. Carry on.
It's a poem that I read many, many years ago
Right.
from a book that we got for Rutherglen Library, good old Rutherglen Library. And we got it out a couple of times. It was modern Scots poetry, but then we could never find it and we never got it. And I couldn't find the words. I could remember some of the bits of this poem. And I got in touch with a great resource recently found, which you'll all probably know about, the Scottish Poetry Library in Edinburgh. And this lovely man called Rod found the poem for me. So in the first time for over 30 years, I've got the full poem and I would like to read it tonight. It's a poem called Smedum, and Smedum is to give somebody their character. And it puts me mind of my granny and how my granny was. She was vicious with her tongue, but but I'm sure we recognise the woman and we recognise the man in it. Anyway, the poem's called Smedum, and it's me fashed. I didn't gie a doch and ye thrown, carnaptious, misbegotten deal of bad luck. You picked the wrong lask and you thought I'd show the world a serby grunting heart. Forby, tells you some types I hurple hame, and fine I ken at the hinner end. I'll hear you back, you scunner. And that's it.
Wonderful.
That was a Dundee poet called Ellie MacDonald.
Well done.
Very good. That's brilliant. I love
Good.
this.
That was good.
I love that. I love that poem.
That's very good. Now, right, I see everybody's got their whiskey,
Yes.
and
I've got gin.
during Robert Burns's lifetime, there was a cheap whiskey on sale in Scotland. During his lifetime, there was a cheap whiskey on sale called Ferrintosh. And the reason that Ferrintosh was cheaper than all the other whiskies was because the man that owned the distillery up north was a man called Forbes of Culloden. And he was granted dispensation for the government for paying tax on his whiskey as reparation for damage caused to his property and lands during the Jacobite uprising. This is true. In the 1780s, believe it or not, the government decided that Mr. Forbes had had enough of producing duty-free whiskey and he would have to start paying tax on it again. When Burns heard about this, he was a wee bit miffed, I think, to say the least. Well, in his mind, you know, it meant that the cheap dram was getting taken away for the ordinary people, for the workers, you know, for the ordinary folk. And he wrote a wonderful poem called Scotch Drink. In it, he sort of praises the medicinal and inspirational qualities of Scotch drink. He gets a wee dig at the excise service, who a couple of years down the line would employ him as a gauger, as I mentioned earlier on there, you know. And It's a wonderful, wonderful poem. Scotch Drink by Robert Burns. Let other poets raise a fracas about vines and wines and drunken Bacchus, and crabbit names and stories rack us in great oorlog. I sing the juice Scotch bear can make us in glass or jug. O thou my muse, good old Scotch drink, whether through wimpling worms thou jink, or richly brown reams o'er the brink in glorious fame, inspire me till I lisp and wink to sing thy name. Let husky wheat the haws adorn, and oats set up their ony horn, and peas and beans at inner morn perfume the plain. Lees me on thee, John Barleycorn, thou kennel grain. On thee, aft Scotland, Chaucer could, and supple scones the whale of food, are tumbling into the boiling fleet with kale and beef. But when thy pours thy strang heart's blood, there thou shines chief. Food fills the wame and keeps us leaving, though life's a gift no worth receiving, when heavy dragged wi' pine and grieving. But I'll by thee, the wheels o' life go downhill screeving wi' rattling glee. Thou clears the heed o' doited leer, thou cheers the heart o' drooping care, thou strings the nerves o' labour sair its weary toil, thou even brightens dark despair wi' gloomy smile. Aft clad in massy siller weed, wi' gentles thou erects thy heed, yet humbly kind in time o' need, the poor man's wine, his wee drap parritch, or his breed, thou kitchens fine. Thou art the life o' public haunts, but thee what were thou fairs and rants, even godly meetings o' the saints by thee inspired, when gaping they besiege the tents are doubly fired. That merry nicht we get the corn in, oh, sweetly then thou reams a horn in, or reeking on a New Year's morning in cog or bicker, and just a wee drap spiritual burning in gusty sucker. When Vulcan gies his bellows breath, and plumen gather wi' their graith, och, rare to see thee fizzing freeth i' the luggy cup. Then burnie wind comes on like death at every chop. Nae mercy then for earner steel, the brawny bainy plume and chiel brings hard our hip wi' sturdy wheel, the strong forehammer, till block and study ring and reel wi' some clamour. When skirling weenies see the licht, thou makes the gossips clatter bricht, how fumbling coofs their dreary slicht wi' worth the name. Nae howdy gets a social nicht, or plack frae them. When neighbours anger at a plea, and just as wood could be, how easy can the barley bree cement the quarrel? It's aye the cheapest lawyer's fee to taste the barrel. Nay, a lake that ere my muse has reason to white her countrymen with treason, but many daily weet their wheezing wi' liquors nice, and hardly in a winter season ere spear her price. We worth that brandy, burning trash, fell sore so many a pain and brash, twins many a poor doilt druck and hash o' half his days, and sends beside old Scotland's cash to her worst phase. Ye Scots will wish old Scotland well. Ye chief, to you my tale I tell. Poor plackless devils like mysel, it sets ye ill, wi' bitter, dearfu wines to mel, or foreign gill. May gravels ruin his blather wrench, and gout's torment him inch by inch, what twists his gruntle wi' a glunge o' sour disdain, out o'er a glass o' whisky punch wi' honest men. Ah, whisky, soul o' plays and pranks, except a bardie's great for thanks, when wanting thee with tuneless cranks are my poor verses. Thou springs thee rattles i' the ranks at others' erses. Ye Farintosh, oh sadly lost. Scotland lament frae coast to coast. Now colic grips and barking host may kill us all. For loyal Forbes' chartered boast is ta'en awa. They cursed horse leeches o' the excise. Will mak the whisky stells their prize. Had up thy horn deal ains, twice, thrice. There, seize the blinkers, and bake them up in brunstained pies for poor damned drinkers. Fortune, if thou but gie me still, hail breeks, a scone and whisky gill, and routh a rhyme to rave at will, tak all the rest, and dealed about as thy blind skill directs thee best. Thank you.
Oh, well done. Brilliant. Marvellous. Absolutely
Who's
marvellous.
Who's next? Anybody else?
Well
Want to
done, that
take
was
the
great.
mantle?
That was marvellous.
Wee party piece, a wee song or a wee poem?
Here's a wee song, somebody. Oh, me,
John Anderson.
Can I just say I love your hat, Anne McMillan?
John Anderson.
A wee song.
I love your
A wee
hat.
song.
Oh, John Anderson, right?
Right, trouble.
I can only see you, Liz. I can only see the people. I can't see everybody else. I can only see you.
See if you got one to the corner and
Up in the
press
corner.
view. Press view.
Whereabouts, Liz?
Press view
Oh,
in your right
just-
hand corner. And then go under to gallery view. You'll see everybody.
Oh, God, I can't even put my glasses on to see. I can only see you.
So, oh, poor you, that's a shame. There's a wee square, at the top that says view on the right hand side to your screen.
Right, let's have a great
Press on it,
time.
you'll
So
see
I'm gonna
gallery
have to
view.
go.
Press on that.
I'm only seeing one person at a time.
Press on gallery view.
Fire away, Brenda. We can also. Or John, sorry, it's John.
Yes, John.
You got it?
The song.
I'm going to give you a song. I've unmuted.
Right, John, I'll mute myself. Right, carry on.
Alright, okay, you can mute all you want. Oh, the summer time has come, and the trees are sweetly blooming, and the wild mountain thyme grows around the blooming heather. Will ye go, lassie, go? And we'll all go together to pull wild mountain thyme all around the blooming heather. Will ye go, lassie, go? I will build my love a bower by yon cool crystal fountain, and around the table fire all the wildflowers of the mountain. Will ye go, lassie, go? And we'll all go together to pull wild mountain thyme all around the blooming heather. Will ye go, lassie, go? If my true love she won't come, I will surely find another to pull wild mountain thyme all around the blooming heather. Will ye go, lassie, go?
Yes.
Oh, fabulous.
Well done,
Well
darling.
done. Well done.
Right.
Well done. Well
Next,
done.
Brenda, you're next on the agenda.
Oh, no.
Oh, anybody else?
You
Brenda.
could go for alcohol now.
Well done, John. That was good.
Have you noticed? I thought if this nobody sang it for this shit. Have you not done that? No.
Sing
John
what?
sang it.
I sang it earlier on.
I was muted for a while.
You want another wee song?
I never been song, John.
Any requests? Nothing too rude. A wee fit. We'll do a wee fit tapper.
ye been sent
Come ye my girlie, I&G, where I ye wedney been say can't tell, I&G, where I on the breeze of girlie crying. I fought in land, I fought at sea, at home I fought with my antail, but I met the devil and Dundee on the breeze o' Kelly Crankale. I&G, where I you wouldn't be seen, I&G, what I on the breeze o' Kelly Crankale. Ball picker, he fell in a far, and clavers go to Clankale. Or I had fed an Athol glad, and deals by Kelly Crankale. I&G, where I you wouldn't been Cantale. I&G, what I on the breeze o' Kelly Crankale. Fie Mackay, Macarchy lie, he's a fisher on the Brankale. You'd better kiss King while he's loose, and come ye by Kelly Crankale. I&G, where I you were can't tell, I&G, or I on the breeze o' Kelly Crankale. There's nae shame, nae shame, nae shame to Swankale. The silver sleighs on Athol braes, and deals by Kelly Crankale. I&G, where I you hadn't been say can't tell, I&G, what I on the breeze o' Kelly Crankale.
Well done, excellent.
Well done, John. That was good.
Anybody else?
Yay. Excellent.
Any other volunteers?
Don't ask John Anderson. He'll sing all night.
He's a good voice. He's a really
Yes.
good voice.
Yes. And he's very good. He knows the words to everything.
That helps.
Right, I'm
doesn't
going
it?
to give a wee quick one in before John, if he's. This is a wee
Right, John,
Glasgow
what
one.
you
We
sing?
venture
Right.
for a wee. After a tangent for the burn stuff. It's called The Coming of the Wee Malkies.
Oh, love that.
What'll ye do when the wee Malkies come? If they dreep down half of the Washhouse Dyke and put the hems in the stairhead light and bluter in your windies with your baw, missus, what'll ye do? What'll ye do when the wee Malkies come? If they chap your door and choke your drains and caw the feet for your sapsy wains and tumble their walkies through your sheets and tim their ashes out in the street, missus, what'll ye do? What'll ye do when the wee Malkies come? If they chuck their screw taps down the pan and stick the heat on the sanitary man? When you hear them shackling down your lobby, chanting, "Wee Malkies, the game's a bogey." Oh, missus, what'll ye do?
Brilliant.
John, are you ready now?
That was good, John. Well done.
You want me to do another one?
Yes,
He's
carry on.
an
You know you want to.
Put their
You
hands
know you
up,
want
John. You
to.
carry on.
Well,
Aye.
this is not well. Rabbi liked a wee drink, and we all have a day mornings when you wake up. And you go, what happened there? I woke up with an aching head, as usual. I can't remember going to bed, as usual. My stomach's feeling mighty queer. It must have been the wine and beer, and nothing in my head is clear, as usual. I supped a drink up like a hooer, as usual. The VP wine and the pantry moor, as usual. Somewhere deep inside my brain, I seem to hear a diesel train, and I promise not to drink again, as usual. And then I woke up in a park, as usual. I must have crawled there after dark, as usual. I'll have to see how much I've got. Jesus Christ, I've drank the lots. Oh, I must have been a drunken sod, as usual.
Oh, good. Katie.
Well done, John.